Gratefulness, 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 gratefulness. This is what I've heard over and over again. I don't know if a lot of you guys have heard this, but back in probably 1994, there was a car. It was a 1988 Honda Accord LXI, 5-speed, had 100,000 miles on it, and the lady was asking for $5,500. And we looked it up in the Trade Express. That's what me and my pops used to do all the time, just like Joe Dirt. And we were looking it up, and we found it, and I called her, and I offered her $5,000. Now, when I offered her the $5,000, I was nervous about it. It was the first car that I was going to get that was basically in the century that I lived. Not the century, but, you know, we had never had that new of a car. And I was nervous, and I put in the call, and then I went out back, and my pops is laying on a floaty in the pool. And I was like, Pops, what are we going to do, man? You know, it's been like 3.5 minutes and she has not called. And he just rested back and he said, God's got it. If it's yours, it's yours. So just enjoy the day. And I was thinking, man, what are you talking about? And I was so, amped up and, I didn't want to listen to him, anything like that. But what he was helping me to understand is to exercise the faith muscle that God had a plan, and that plan was better than any plan that I could ever have. And I keep hearing this gratefulness part, but what God put on my heart this morning while I was on my walk and while I was doing my study, which I invite you to do, every morning, just wake up, do the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day, read through it. And when you read through it, allow God to start to talk to you. And it was amazing because this morning he talked about, he kept on hitting me with faithfulness, faithfulness, faithfulness. And the world kept saying to me, you need to be grateful. You need to be grateful. Be grateful in your situation. Be grateful for your family. Be grateful for your business. Be grateful for your friends, for everything around you, for your health. And I keep hearing that from the world, keep hearing that from people, like you just need to be grateful. And what God was saying is the foundation of being grateful and if you want to truly be grateful, you got to be faithful. And faithfulness is just full of faith. And so in every situation, just be full of faith. While my dad was sitting on that floaty in the pool, he had full faith that I was going to either get the car that I wanted, which was the white 1988 Honda Accord LXI with 100,000 miles on it, or God was going to give me something better. And so my pops didn't have to focus on being grateful because he was full of faith. And so in today's proverb, which is Proverbs 20, I've always wondered about this. I've heard about being faithful and having faith, but I've never known how to actually have it. And so it was kind of cool because it listed this out in Proverbs 20 today. And 3,000 years ago, it's amazing because God already knew exactly where you're at. The challenges that you're dealing with today, the great things that you're dealing with, He knows exactly what is going on. And the fact that he could know that 3,000 years ago and hit you with it today in the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day where the word will come alive and it's 3,000-year-old wisdom, it's incredible to be able to see that we should just have faith in him. But what is faith and how can we have more of it? How can we be full of faith? Well, number one, in verse 1, it says, keep a sober mind. And this isn't just about, like when I read this the first time, it was like, people are going to get mad at me if they drink alcohol, whatever it is. It's not what it is. It's keep a sober mind. Anything that would alter your mind away from a relationship with him. And to be able to be locked into him because he built you. He knows exactly what you need right now. And he's going to be able to deliver it. And he's going to be able to deliver it exceedingly abundantly more than you could ever imagine. And sometimes we limit God. My pops would always say to me, like, how big is God in your life? And I said, well, or he would say, how big is God? And I would say, I don't know, Pop, how big? And he would say, as big as you'll get out of the way and let him be in your life. And imagine that. Imagine if gratefulness, which the foundation of gratefulness is faithfulness, and anytime you weren't grateful, it was just the muscle of your faith needed to be worked. And what area could that be worked in? Well, he went through it today in verse 1, keep a sober mind. In verse 2, 8, and 26, that you reap what you sow. This is something that, obviously when you plant a seed and you water the seed and you tend to it, there's going to be a harvest, right? And so we can't get mad at the orange tree for producing oranges. This is a lot of times we get mad at the orange tree for not producing apples because we planted a seed, right? And then we watered it and then it grew and then we were mad at the fruit. Well, you can't get mad at the fruit. Let's look at the seed. And so in verse 2, 8, 26, it talks about this. And then in verse 3, it talks about being peaceful, grateful, and all the other fulls start with faith. Again, the world will tell you, you just need to be grateful, practice gratitude, all these things. And what God is saying, no, I need you to practice your faith, because the faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And if you can have faith, not faith in the world, not faith in your job, not faith in your talents, but faith in Him, then guess what starts to happen? All those other fulls start to come into play, and you will be full. When you're faithful, which means you're full of faith, you can walk. You can walk light, and it's not that everything's going to turn out exactly the way that you want it, but it will turn out the way that He wants it. In verse 4 and 13, it talks about lazy faith wastes time. Chew on that for a second. That was tough for me to read this morning. Lazy faith wastes time. In verse 5, 7, and 15, the fear of God leads to wisdom. Wisdom leads to knowledge. Knowledge leads to understanding, and understanding leads to insight. And if you're lacking insight, go to understanding. If you're lacking understanding, go to knowledge. If you're lacking knowledge, go to wisdom. And if you're lacking wisdom, simply go to the fear or respect of God. In verse 6, it talks about that faith is a muscle. Exercise it and it will get stronger. Bang, bang, biggity, bang. If you want your faith to be stronger, exercise your faith. Be conscious when you pray for more faith, because God will give you an opportunity to be able to exercise that faith. If you hear me almost coming through the microphone today, it's because I wrote this in the backyard today, this morning, waking up, spending time, going on a walk, spending time with the Lord, and being in Proverbs this morning. And I invite you to do the same. But also, too, is because I have a men's group in a couple of minutes that I get a chance to be able to spend time. And the emphasis is, guess what? Proverbs 20. And it's all about faithfulness that will lead to all the other fulls in your life. Verse number 9 and 11, stay humble. We all are boneheads at some time. This is a big one because, just be conscious when you put judgment on someone or you think that somebody should live up to your expectation. I can tell you this, you're going to be a bonehead at some point and you're going to have to eat crow. So just be humble, stay humble, and keep practice that humility. Watch this. Do right business even when it hurts. Negotiation is an opportunity to build relationships. Always leave something on the table, and your guests will return for another meal. And that's in verse 10, 14, 17, 22, and 23, which means that it's quite important to God for you to do right business even when it hurts. How can we do that? By staying faithful, because we know that if we're full of faith and we do the right thing and the right thing doesn't happen right away, we still got faith that it's coming. And what can we do? We can become grateful later on, because we could say, you know what? I didn't know how this thing was going to work out, but I gave it to God. And when I gave it to God, He gave me back something that was even better than I could imagine. In verse 12 and 27, who and what is your faith in? And this one was wild, because you'll know, you will know who you have faith and what you have faith in by the light inside of you. Sit in it for a second. In verse 16 and 25, it says, stay out of debt, give more than you ever take. That's a lesson that I learned from Fred Ciosi. He told me that when we first became friends. We were sitting on the beach, and I said, man, you're an incredible man. He said, I just try and deposit more than I withdraw. Fred Ciosi, you're an absolute genius. I love you so much. Verse 18, make friends and be an even greater one. In verse 19, speak life. slow and consistent. It doesn't mean that you always have to jump in somebody's face about it, but I tell you, when you speak life to somebody, slow and consistent, it will pay crazy dividends. In verse 20, it says, honor your parents. God is strong in this. He's strong in this. He says it in so many verses, honor your parents. Honor your parents even if the situation isn't the greatest. Why? Because you'll be acting on faith as opposed to circumstance. And your parents did the best they could with what they had at the particular time, and they passed the baton to you. So it's now your time to be able to take it to that next level. In verse 21, plant, water, and harvest. Don't get them out of order. Actually, till, plant, water, and harvest. Get the soil prepared, plant the seed, water the seed, and then harvest. But you can't plant the seed and hope for the harvest right away. Oh, man. In verse 28, love and faithfulness will be a firm foundation in all things. Love and faithfulness. You fill your heart up with love, which if you spend time and you serve God, he is love. So if you do that, you'll fill your heart up. And then he says faithfulness, love and faithfulness. Faith in the fact that you know that God has his purpose, his plan, and his timing. And it's incredible when those things come into play. In verse 29, as we end today, and I get down to my men's group, which is down on the first floor here in Carlsbad, 7:30 to 8:30 every Tuesday morning, and I invite you, any one of you. It's an amazing group. Is men's glory is strength. God's glory is wisdom, which is verse 29. You see, in 1994, I ended up getting that white Honda Accord LXI 5-speed with 100,000 miles on it. But I could tell you this right now. I don't wish for one more moment of shifting the gears, spending time with it, or having this relic of a car. But I would trade anything in my life right now for 5 more minutes with my pops, present with him, because I was full of faith that that car was coming. On that day, I wasted time. On that day, I was focused on things that didn't really matter. And if I could have that moment back, I could have 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes with my pops, sitting on a little floaty in the pool, spending time with him and completely focused and present on him, I would give anything. You see, I don't think that it's about a challenge of us being grateful. I think it's a challenge of us being faithful, being full of faith in every single thing that we do in every single aspect of our walk. So I ask you today, where is your faith lacking? Find that place and lock into it and realize that your faith, you can walk by faith, not by sight, when you have faith in the right one. So I hope you have a phenomenal day. I'm going to go down to men's group. I love you guys so much. I had to get this out. It was in my heart. I love you so much. Faithfulness will produce gratefulness and all the other nesses and fulls in your life. Have a wonderful day. My name is Kelly Cardenas, and I'm officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.
Nothing more on my mind. I got 2 shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is